Watch, first of all, the watch has to speak to me. As soon as I see and look at the watch and hold it in my arms, it has to speak to me in a way that I don't need to listen in words.
Hi, my name is Jack Tyler, and welcome back to another episode of Collector to Collector here at Shreve Crump & Lowe. And today we have a very special guest, Poojan Dhanesha, who's going to walk us through his incredibly diverse collection of watches. So thank you for being with us here today, Poojan.
Thank you for having me. Lucky to be here.
Right on. So let's dive right in. I mean, kind of a standard question that I always find really interesting because everybody has a completely different answer. But what got you pointed in the direction of not just this collection, but just watches in general?
Watches in general, yes. My father, indeed. I always saw him wearing his watches, and honestly, he even has a farmer's wrist tan on his hand. That tan is such a great memory in my head that every time I woke up in the morning and I was going to the breakfast table, whether he was having a breakfast or whether he was going outside, whether he was at his work site or whatever it is, he always had a watch on.
Okay.
And watches were a great presence in my life. My grandfather didn't wear as many watches as my dad does, but even though it's not monumental pieces, there is always a watch on his hand.
Right, yeah, it was a level of like professionalism, right? I kind of had a similar experience. Do your and dad like trade watches ever? Or?
I wish. He doesn't know nearly that I have so many watches.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you think he would approve?
I believe so.
Okay, well, he's going to know now. He's probably going to watch the video,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And he's going to be fascinated with the level of depth that the collection has come up to. And he's probably going to want to swing on some of the watches and see for himself.
Okay, well, very cool. So what was the first one? I mean, do you have the first watch that you, like the first, real watch?
I actually really missed that. I had my first watch with kind of an interlocking stretchable bracelet watch. That was like $10. I bought it off of a flea market, and that was a vivid memory in my head. But unfortunately, that watch is no longer around because since the time my parents moved, and the watch got missed in the transition.
So on the table, which was the first piece for you?
The first one that I actually got was this Super Ocean Heritage Breitling.
Okay.
And it's a humongous piece, 46 millimeters.
It is a big watch.
Yes,
what time period was this?
I believe this was in 2019. This was a graduation gift to myself.
Oh, okay.
As I was graduating from general
for
school.
You.
Yeah. And this, the watch, the crystal is so clear that every time I look at the face, it just shows the depth of the dial through the glass, and that's probably what enticed me to this piece.
Yeah, there's a lot of dial to view with that particular watch.
Yeah.
And the blue, I mean, most people don't gravitate towards a blue dial for their first watch. Most people would be, maybe black or something. It's a little bit more conservative. Yeah. So you just love the color. That was what did it
just
for you?
The color spoke to me, and kind of my first big boy watch. I had never spent such an amount of money on a watch before. So me coming out of school and this as a first purchase was kind of meant to happen thing.
Gotcha. And speaking of school, what is your profession, if you don't mind?
I'm a general dentist. I practice in south of Boston, and cool. I help out as an associate in a couple of practices that is owned by a group practice of dentists together, and it's called the Alpha Dental Center.
Oh, great. Yeah, wonderful. And I'm assuming you wear your watches every day to work.
I do indeed. Cool. And I, even though I don't like them getting all dirty and messed up when I'm, in patient's mouth.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But they do have place in my drawer every day when I go there, and that's where they reside.
Yeah, I think it's always nice to meet people that are collectors, but also, are wearing their watches on a regular basis.
And believe it or not, I have a few connections with my patients because of my watches. They'll be like, "Oh, doc, you're a watch person." I'm like, yes, because they saw me commenting on their watch. And I'm like, asking them questions actually gets me warmed up and breaks that first level of ice.
Yeah. And so you never know who's going to ask about what you're wearing. And, it's amazing the people that you meet just by what's on your wrist. So this was obviously a milestone, a graduation watch. Are there any other watches in the collection that represent, kind of a major point in your life?
Absolutely. So each of my watches, I like to purchase and get into watches as a monumental piece in my life, and that means like a milestone achievement for me.
Cool.
So all my watches so far, except for a couple few which are impulsive again, but at the same time, all of my watches have certain meaning behind why I got there and when I acquired them. I would like to next go to potentially this watch. This is my crown jewel, and this is 1929, so almost about to be 100 years old.
Wow, incredible.
It's a Patek with green gold, and the engravings on the side of the case, and I have to show you a magic trick with this watch.
Okay.
There is inscription on the back as to when it was actually, commissioned. It says Christmas of 1929.
Wow.
And this was the Depression area, remember?
Yeah, so very few people would be able to afford. Oh, you're gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. It just opens right up.
Exactly. And the age on the dial is just so magnificent, and it just
Wow.
tells me that this probably sat in somebody's drawer and they forgot
Yeah.
about the watch.
Didn't get worn very often. I mean, I would imagine that would be such a precious thing to
Yeah.
have at that time period that you wouldn't want to wear it every day. I wonder why. Do you know why? Like, what is the technical aspect for why it would open up like that?
I believe it's for loading up the movement and ease of servicing,
okay.
possibly, because
Wow.
you can actually lift the whole movement with the dial from the main plate.
Okay.
And so the assembly, I think, must have happened through this flap.
Sure.
And if you even want to hear, I can even make the audience hear this. It's pretty crisp.
Oh wow, yeah, it sounds brand new.
Yeah, yeah.
That's wild.
This was,
have a look?
yeah, please. This was
Wow.
one of the pieces that was such a serendipitous moment. This was my first pickup off of an auction.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was in right at the inception of COVID time,
Okay.
and we were all following the guidelines for social distancing and everything. So
Sure.
there is an auction house, Jones and Horns, in New Hampshire.
Wow.
They were hosting their first in-person auction. And I happened to just read about it, and randomly I thought, there's nothing much going on right now. Might as well pay them a visit and sit in the auction.
Sure.
I was there, and while I was going through their online catalog, this is what appeared to pique my interest. And I'm like, you know what? Just for that one watch, I might just go and stop by.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to kind of see them at preview before, and I tried that on, and that spoke to me at such an elemental level. I'm like, you know what? This is it. This is gonna make my visit worth it.
Right on. That's very, very cool. Yeah. Have you ever tried looking up like the name on the back?
It's
must
actually
have. I know
interesting
you
you say
have.
that.
Yeah.
I've tried, and I've hit a roadblock.
Okay.
The person who this watch has been inscribed on. With,
Okay. Well, if anybody watching recognizes this name, please drop us a comment or send us a message because we'd love to
it says
love to know more.
Graham Wells, and from what I have found out so far, is this person used to work for the Equitable Trust Company of New York, which is now the Chase Bank.
Oh wow. Okay. Well.
So-
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes for me.
Well, maybe we'll have somebody that knows a little bit more. Again, I feel like the theme with your collection is just the width of diversity within the types of watches, the age of the watch. So yeah, I mean, in terms of a common theme for why you pick certain pieces, is it just based on aesthetics? Is it a feeling? Are you looking for specific references? Or just tell us a little bit more about that.
Great question. In a watch, first of all, the watch has to speak to me. Like soon as I see and look at the watch and hold it in my arms, it has to speak to me in a way that I don't need to listen in words.
Okay, yeah.
The aesthetics, of course, the dial, the case, the hands, even the applied numerals, and sometimes even the absence of it.
Sure.
The blank canvas and the simplicity that actually speaks to me in this AP, which was also another serendipitous moment for me to have picked it up.
Sure.
It is just so clean, and it's so thin that I don't have any watches in this caliber to begin with. And it just, when I look at the watch, if it brings a smile on my face, that's going to be something I'm going to be pursuing.
Okay, I think that might be the theme here, is that there is a certain playful aspect about all of these watches, and I know we have a couple more we're going to get to that definitely kick the level of playfulness up to an entire new echelon. But yeah, this is really great. So where did you find this piece?
So there's a nice vintage shop in Concord, Massachusetts. It's called Rewind.
Okay, cool.
And he's a good friend of mine. His name is Steve. Shout out to Steve.
Steve.
He has a great collection of vintage watches, and the depth of the collection that I always see whenever I stop by is more than the redundance, it's how much the guy is knowledgeable about the watches. And this happened to be one of the meetups that I was a part of.
Cool.
Multiple watch groups in the town, and as a meetup we were hanging out at his shop, and this was sitting in one of the corners in the showcase. And when I happened to pass by, and I just probably bent over and zoomed in to look at what it is, it happened to be an AP, and I immediately asked the question to Steve. I'm like, when did AP make things like these?
Yeah, exactly. Most people, they see that watch and all they know is what's on your wrist right now. They don't know that there used to be, let's just say, a much more diverse catalog from Audemars previously.
Interesting fact about that watch. It so happened that our good folks at AP, when I brought it to them, they're like, what is this? Even we have no idea, because And Chris from AP, when he went to take his tour of the mainland in Switzerland about the boutique and stuff, he actually told me that this watch happens to be in the AP museum.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now it's even more special.
Right? It's even more special.
Cool. Well, moving on to, again, things that bring you joy. You have this pink dial, Grand Seiko. Tell us a little bit about this watch.
This watch happens to be my engagement watch.
Ah, okay. Speaking of
And,
special things.
Exactly. Milestone again.
Okay, yeah.
This is based off of the Chiaroscuro. That means the shimmering painting segment of the Grand Seiko organization. And they wanted to make a watch which represents an early sunrise on Lake Suwa in Japan.
Okay.
And this color and the playfulness of the light as you move the watch around is what signifies an early sunrise and that pinkish hue in the sky. I never had a pink watch before.
Yeah,
and like I said,
it's definitely a bold move, but I mean it works. And of course, Grand Seiko with their finishing, it's just
I
impeccable.
was just going to touch up on that spring drive movement and the finishing like no other. Japanese people don't really know how to finish their watches.
Now, did your bride-to-be get a watch as well?
I am glad you asked that because that's the watch we are moving on to the next.
Oh, okay. This is her watch.
Yes, so the 1970s Patek. I forget the reference on this. Apologize for that.
It's okay.
But it's a nice stepped bezel, and you know it's definitely a refinished dial, of course. But the applied paint that happens to be the hour indices and the black paint on the hands just spoke to me. It's just elegant, and it kind of made sense at the time when I bought this, and I bought it with her thought in mind that this is going to be on her wrist.
That's really sweet. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. Do you ever wear it yourself? I would totally wear it.
I tried that 100%, and I did not want to because I felt that need that when I give her something, it's hers.
Okay.
And she shouldn't be like, oh, he gave me his watch.
Okay. Yeah, that's very very admirable.
Yeah. This is again an auction pickup at the Jones & Orange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool. Man, I'm gonna have to check it out. We might be fighting over the same watches.
I hope not.
Okay, now speaking of AP, there's a watch on the table that I actually have not really seen many of these in person before, which is the Code 1159. And I'd love to know a little bit more about what brought you to this watch. When did you get this? I'm curious, did you get this when these came out? Is that?
Not really. I wish I was that lucky. But my relationship with AP started with this watch.
Oh, I see.
And I was just, walking across this 1 mile radius of a watch extravaganza we have in Newbury Street in Boston, and happened to stumble into the store with one of my other friends who has another Code with a red dial on. I'm like, hey, do you guys have anything interesting that I might want to take a look at? And it was my way of segueing into the brand, and I wanted to kind of reach out and say, hey, I'm really interested in one of the APs, and show me something that blows my mind away.
Sure.
They showed me multiple iterations of this watch, which happens to be a dress watch, of course. I don't have a lot of dress watches. I like sporty watches because it suits my profession where I'm wearing it. And also, I don't go to a lot of black tie events or tuxedo events where I like to wear simple dress watches.
Yeah.
But this spoke to me just so distinctly that it's so versatile. It goes with any kind of clothes you have on. And the white gold is what makes it more, understated.
Yeah.
You don't want to catch wrong attraction, of course. With rose gold, you do tend to get some head turners.
For sure. Yeah. And AP does one of my favorite rose golds, for sure.
100%. Very elegant and very warm, especially given my complexion. The rose gold does complement it really well.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And the interesting part about this watch is the silicone.
Right, I remember reading about this because that's kind of harkening back to the the inner part of the watch,
the
right?
octagonal, yes.
Yeah.
That's
a little nod to the
DNA.
the other guy on your wrist.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
A beautiful piece.
And this was my first pickup with AP in the year, I would say, 2022.
So beyond just having quite a large range of different kinds of watches, also looks like some different price points on the table. And one of them that I'd love to hear a little bit more about is this Baltic.
Yeah, this is the MR01. Okay. And it's got the blue dial. I'm a sucker for blue, if you can't see already.
I can tell. Yeah, there's actually not a single black dial watch on the table right now.
I know. Maybe that gives me the motivation to get the next one in black.
Okay, I see what you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyways, these guys are doing some great stuff. They've got the brigade numerals going.
Yeah.
They have a Guillot shade micro subdial for the minutes, and the hour hands are free with the micro rotor on the back, which is the most interesting part of the watch. And they have a quick release bracelet too.
Oh wow!
So if we actually release that, that's
so you can just switch it out whenever you want.
Exactly.
Cool.
And not only does that give me the opportunity to admire the heart of the watch, and at such a low price point, having done a micro rotor movement with accurate timekeeping, this blows my mind.
Yeah, they are really, really cool, and I'm glad to see that you have one. So what was was this just kind of like a spur of the moment pickup, or did this one fall into the category of a big
It
life
actually,
event?
just as you said, it was an impulsive purchase.
Sure.
Happened to be in one of the meetups, right place at the right time. One of
Okay.
my friends was like, "Hey, you know what? If anyone is looking into acquiring one of the Baltics, I wanted to let this go sadly, and I happened to be on the same
Okay,
table."
well, it's found a new home.
Yes, brocade numerals, there's something so elegant about this, and they're
Mhm.
also mirror polished. So sometimes when I'm looking at admiring the watch, the dial wise, it just shows my face smiling into it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, it's a really beautiful watch. And if you showed that to someone who didn't know a lot about watches and asked them, you know, do you think this is a really expensive watch? Do you think this is kind of like entry level? I doubt anybody would ever think that it was the price it was. So yeah, they're really, really cool.
And they try to, mitigate the whole gap by removing all the retailers in the middle and distributorship. And I think it's direct to consumer, and that's what keeps their overhead less.
Yeah.
And be able to put out something at such a price point that's affordable to everyone.
The problem is that everybody knows about it now. Everybody knows about Baltic. Speaking of watch groups and meetups, Boston obviously is kind of having like a renaissance period in terms of the amount of boutiques that are here. I think that, post-pandemic, there's a lot of new people interested in, I was going to say the sport. It kind of is a sport in a way, but that's a whole other story. But I was going to ask, like, have there been any people in particular that really kind of inspired you to keep going or, get interested in some other brands or anything like that?
Yeah, I look up to quite a lot of people, and especially the ones that I have had a pleasure of meeting with in the real life and walking their walks.
Cool.
David is one of them, of course, from one of the communities that we know very well. And also there are other people who I have kind of rubbed shoulders with and who have intrigued me into independent watchmaking a lot more. And I really do like to also consume a lot of internet content on watches.
Yeah.
And I'm a regular on Hodinkee and all the stuff that you usually go to when you are a watch nut like us. And I have a few collectors that I look up to pretty admiringly, and Ronnie Madhwani happens to be one. He's a Ugandan collector, has a plethora of watch collection, and even Jason Singer from Arizona, who happens to be in one of the Talking Watches videos. And these are the people who keep on, inspiring me and making me want newer watches every time.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
Absolutely. And like you said correctly, Boston post-COVID has sprung into a totally different era of watch collecting.
Yeah.
So many new collectors coming out, and you happen to meet them at the boutiques, or you're just walking by and somebody comments and you happen to strike up a conversation and become friends. In fact, one of the local communities I'm a part of is purely just friendships and stumbling upon each other and forming a group and meeting up every month to kind of discuss watches.
Yeah, I think it's really easy, when you get into this, for it to be a very solitary thing, or like at most maybe you're just taking a risk shot to share to strangers on Instagram. But like, I think it's important for everyone to remember that it is something that is a lot more fun to enjoy when you can enjoy it with other people. Also makes you feel a little bit less crazy, when you can at least commune with other people that are passionate about this stuff.
And you can even channel your craziness in your collection.
True. That is true. Yeah, very, very true. You mentioned that you've gotten a couple watches at auction. You've got some pieces that are brand new, and kind of on that side of things. I mean, obviously, it seems like it's cooled down a little bit, but there was, a lot to certainly read about and experience during the pandemic, in particular about acquiring some of these pieces that are maybe a little bit more difficult for someone to just walk in off the street and buy. So yeah, my question is, how has your experience been, maybe getting towards your dream watches through the boutiques?
Great question. I have no one else to thank but the amazing people that I actually know, like Spencer, like you, and everybody at Shreve for sure. Every time I'm here, it's just an hour full of fun and fun conversations. Cool. And the boutiques across from the street here, AP, Richard Meal, John over there, and everybody who I actually have met through the boutiques now, luckily have been very approachable. And it is such a changing vibe right now, especially from the time when it was COVID at peak season, when everything was unaffordable, unattainable, because people were just jumping on, parking their money, thinking that this is going to be an investment mode, which is something that I have a distaste for. I don't look at watches as investments at all. It is completely emotional and very sentimental.
Yeah.
And especially every watch in my collection means a milestone to me. Right. And so I would love to pass down watches to my progeny and my loved ones, even including friends and my family.
Cool.
I have done it in the past, and luckily, it keeps me going, having new pieces come in, and some pieces go out to the people that I love and I care. And I was just talking to Spencer the other time saying that, watches as a gift are just so underrated because it shows your great admiration to the person you are giving your watch to, because you actually respect their time and you love them by giving them something that keeps time. And every time they look at it, they will remember you.
Wow, you're making me feel like a better person just from listening to you talk. But yeah, no, I love that. I mean, that's that's a nice organic way to approach this. Yeah, I think any time that you start thinking about, it's an investment, I got to be careful with it, and like, not that you're not careful, but
certainly you are spending your hard-earned money on this, and you want to keep the hobby fun, but also at the same time, never shy away from approaching, because literally all the new pieces that I've acquired are just after a mere conversation saying that, hey, I admire your brand and I would love to get into one of these. Yeah. Would you suggest anything that would fit my collection?
Right on. So if you're listening, take notes. Like, don't be the person that walks in that demands a Daytona or, wants to throw down for a Royal Oak. Exactly what he just said, I think is so paramount in order to develop a relationship. Because at the end of the day, that's what I've found in my experience is that if you walk into it thinking that you're buying something on Amazon and there's no interaction between two human beings, good luck. It's not going to happen.
In fact, the chase is the thrill,
Yeah, for sure.
You chasing the piece, and that's why I like to watch John Goldberger's videos.
Right.
And he's a stalwart in watch collecting world, and I greatly admire and look up to him. I have never met him in person, but that's the kind of philosophy he instills in people that chase it.
Yeah, and wait.
To wanting to, exactly, that wait is what's fruitful, because that's what's going to get you to express your emotions, what went into waiting for that watch. And when you finally got it, how did you get it, and what was the epitome of all your expressions at the moment when you picked it up?
Yeah. That's a great point. So we were talking about kind of all of these watches being so different, what brings them all together, and we landed on the fact that it brings you joy. And I know that while we have some watches here, there are a couple more that you would love to show us that, again, might be on a whole other level of joy. So can we grab those and take a look?
Sure. It's the other extreme of my collection. I like to call it the funk box.
The funk box. Okay, you heard it here first.
And the color scheme will kind of give the spectators a little look into it.
Wow. Okay.
These are the watches that are purely out of sheer love towards creativity. And basically all the novices and the newcomers, the new watchmakers that come out, this is to support their venture and to kind of make them into reality.
Oh, right on.
Makes me actually kind of want to talk about this watch to begin with.
Absolutely.
So this is called a small brand out of Paris, France. It's called Space One.
Okay.
And these are two guys, Theo Offray, he's a watchmaker, a 27-year-old watchmaker.
Oh, wow.
And Guillaume Leidet, he's an entrepreneur, watch entrepreneur, also 37 years old, so quite young.
Yeah.
And they set out to actually make watches that remind of the space age we are in right now.
I can see that.
Right?
But it also looks like, like 60s
spaceship
too. Like I can see both sides of the coin there in terms of being very modern, but also feeling like super retro at the same time.
What actually is really interesting about this watch is it's a monoblock assembly from the backside with the steel main plate.
Oh, cool.
And this whole case is a single piece titanium that's blued and heated. And if you can see the different textures, there is mirror finish, there is satin finish, and there is brush finish right at the striations on the side.
That is really cool.
And this is actually a jumping hour watch.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow, they really threw the kitchen sink. Now, is this like they have one model, or do they have...
So this was actually their crowdfunding project when they came out with.
Cool.
This is what actually enticed me to it and kind of gave me a motivation. I like Debutune as a brand.
I was going to say, if there was another watch that... It doesn't look anything like it, but it kind of evokes the same feeling, I would say Debutune. But,
right. The Dream Watch by Debutune, they also have something similar.
Right.
It has a monoblock titanium blued assembly.
Cool.
And, this is my segue into it.
Yeah, that's really, really neat.
This is actually one of my fewer watches that I get the most questions asked on.
I would imagine.
And it also brings joy to kids when I see them in the clinic wearing this watch.
There you go. It's for a good cause.
It is for a good cause indeed.
Okay, so next up, this I think is probably the most colorful watch in the entire collection. Tell us a little bit about this piece.
I have two extremes I have now realized in my collection. This is the other extreme of my funky watch collection, and the colors actually signify that. This happens to be MA.D 1 from Max Busser and Friends, and I just can't say enough things about their brand and what they're trying to achieve in the market today, with their perspective on creative watchmaking and how to read time a different way. It's definitely intriguing, and it's getting a lot of people excited about this brand. This happens to be his collaboration with Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. He's one of the inspirers of the art. Era in the time of when Max Busser was growing up, and he actually used to admire him because Jean-Charles de Castelbajac used to work with all the renowned, watch. I mean, not only the watch artists, but also even the art community was quite followed by him.
Oh, cool!
And his collaborations is what made Max Busser reach out to him and say, "Hey, would you mind designing a watch with me?" And he lovingly came out with this. And the primary color palette here is red for passion, blue for hope, and pink for yellow for human warmth. And these are the colors that the artist who Max collaborated with, he used to work extensively with.
Right.
So this watch is just magnificent, and every time I have this on my wrist, I get stopped by strangers and say, "Is that a watch, and how do you tell time?"
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I mean, do you think that that's kind of like the overarching ethos of that brand is to, get people to ask questions, Because it seems like it's not something that you can even look at pictures of and really, it's something that's like very visceral and like physical. Like whenever I see an MB&F piece, I want to go pick it up or look at it or, move it around because there's so much to pay attention to.
There is so much that literally, like you said, there is so much that goes on into making these watches. And every time I pick up an MB&F, it makes me realize that we are going into the direction of independent watchmaking like never before.
Sure.
And independent watchmakers are becoming so prevalent in the current time, and every young collector wants something that you've never heard of, because these young independent watchmakers are now trying to start and make their mark into the society of watch collecting, of course. But at the same time, these pieces are not just for any collectors. These are for any single person walking on the street and saying that is cool, and they can just pick it up and wear it.
For sure. So where do you think the next 5 years for independent watchmakers, what does that look like?
I would say very bright. And especially people are moving away from the main brands, not because of only the rising cost of affordability, and also the approach. It's actually far-fetched as to when you come down to, if somebody just wants a Daytona, and they're going to be disappointed in knowing that it's going to take time.
Yep.
And in the meantime, they can actually turn to the independent watchmakers who are relatively very approachable and more attainable. I would say, yes, it costs a little bit of money to admire their work. And just like any artist, you need to appreciate what they do first, then to kind of own the art that they actually are imparting to the society.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we put such a premium on exclusivity, and I think people are maybe just kind of getting tired of the exclusivity aspect being the fact that there's people that are withholding it from you. Like, a lot of people have Daytonas, a lot of people have Royal Oaks. They're not necessarily scarce. The scarcity comes from the fact that they're not easy to buy, whereas these pieces, they literally are incredibly unique and one of one. Like, you're not going to see another person on the bus that
How
has
many
that on their
people
wrist.
are you going to cross paths with that have this watch on?
Yeah.
You'll probably not have a lot.
Exactly.
Because not only are these limited, but they are also very evolving as brands, these independent watchmakers. And they are also trying to put something into the market every time and again. And they want people to now start thinking that this era of watchmaking, the independent watchmaking with their funky timepieces and a different way to tell time altogether, is starting to become a norm.
For sure.
So I'm actually pretty excited to be living in this moment and living in this time.
Yeah, right on.
Where, eclectivity is something that people are looking towards.
Cool. So speaking of some more eclectivity, I think there's one more that we're going to take a peek at.
Absolutely. This is my most recent one, of course.
Okay.
Again, from the brand MB&F. And this is the MA.D 1S. This is the slim version. Even though I do like wearing my colorful one quite a bit, it happens to be just a little too big, and sometimes it's not practical to be worn with a suit and a tie or a shirt.
Sure.
So you want to wear something like this, because this is also their next iteration that came out with half the case size. Instead of that watch having the hour and the minute tracks, this just has a combined hour and minute track together with the markings to signify what time you're at.
Very cool.
And again, the rotor is what just is mind-boggling. You want to keep playing with it, and the way it rotates.
Fidget spinner for your wrist.
Indeed it is. The fidget spinner just the right way.
That's really cool. Right on.
And the hour markers are all loomed, so if you're in the dark, that gives you another appealing scene on your wrist.
Right on. And finally, I almost forgot, actually literally on your wrist, tell us a little bit about this Royal Oak chronograph.
This is my other prized possession, Royal Oak chronograph in blue, again, 26240 ST. So this is the stainless steel version with the, unfortunately not the 50th anniversary, but I was lucky to call this piece as one of my inhabitants in my collection.
Sure.
And this happened to be a purchase 2 years ago, exactly on my dad's birthday.
Oh, okay.
This is a wonderful story, indeed. When I was actually at my clinic working on my patients, I happened to just stop by at my office because I used to leave my watches and my phone, everything on my desk. So I just happened to pass by my office when I saw a ping on my phone, and it was Nicole from AP. And this is a funny story. I just read Nicole and my heart stopped. There is only a few times when you hear the watch, associates reaching out to you. Either they have bad news or they have good news.
Right, yeah. It's a 50-50 shot.
Exactly. This happened to be good news, and she's like,
can
we
tell.
don't have everything that you had asked for, but we have something that we know you might like.
And that was the watch. Wow, very cool. Would you say that's one of your most worn pieces?
Absolutely. I find myself going to these back and forth as many times in the day. Even these are sometimes my midday switches too.
Oh, you have a midday switch. You're one of those. Gotcha. Okay.
Not always, but watches for me, they're not even just for telling time. In fact, sometimes when I go to the office, I don't have time set up.
Sure.
I just put it on because I felt like wearing that watch on the day, and I just go about my day. And if somebody asks me what time it is, I'll pick out my phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Well, just wanted to take a second and thank you again for sharing this really, truly wonderful collection. I mean, I think we've gone from the 20s to the 70s to the future. I mean, the entire space-time continuum exists within your one collection. So
you said it the right way.
Right on. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you spending some time with us. And,
pleasure's all mine.
If you enjoyed the video, please do us a favor. Comment below. Let us know what are some of your favorite watches in Poojan's collection. And if you want to learn more about Shreve Krumpenloe's extensive collection of pre-owned and current production watches, please visit us online at shrevekrumpinloe.com or at our 39 Newberry Street location.